Alright, in this video I'm just going to break down some of the blueprints for this project, Battalion. I won't go into too much detail because I don't want the video to be too long, but I'll try and read through some of the nodes so that it makes sense. Start off with a bit of gameplay. So in Battalion you control 3 characters: Archer, Knight and Mage, and you basically got to get them to the end of the level and defeat all the enemies you can. And you can pick up, loot along the way, like gold or food, which restores your health. And slow grass slows you down, so you have to use twice as much stamina to get through it. Right, I've not got enough stamina to fight all these enemies straight away, so I'll just get my guys into place and wait till next turn. And when the enemies can't see you, I've got the yellow icon. You're just moving about to a random place. Alright, so now I've got enough stamina to move and attack or damage the enemies. So slash attack is more powerful than spin attack, but you only focus one target and it takes away more stamina. So I'm going to use spin attack to preserve it, so I can get 2 hits on him. Won't be able to do enough damage to kill all these, so with the mage what I can do is get into range, use a column, and just basically when the enemies are stood in the column, if melee, they basically skip the turn because they can't do anything. And I'll try and block this knight from hitting the mage because the mage can't heal themselves, which sounds pretty daft, and I'll have to change that when I go back to working on it. Mage's got a pretty good ability called Shockwave where you should do a load of damage to enemies in a radius. I'll just keep using that to get rid of them. Move into range. So I can use a basic shot for the archer, which does 200 damage. It takes up 300 stamina, but if you're closer, you can use power shot, 400 stamina, but it does 500 damage. I'll just use that to one-shot this enemy. Then try and hide from that archer. And just move my knight. And guess what, get my archer into range so we can attack with a power shot next turn. I can use the mage to give her some stamina so she can move over. Yeah, the rest of the level is pretty much like this. So this is just the camera, so which you move around with WASD and Q and E to rotate, and which lets me select actual characters like the knight, archer and the mage. So I've got some basic movement inputs, so whenever I press W or S it moves forward in the forward direction, A and D it moves right and left. Same with the camera, I can rotate the camera and rotate the camera anti-clockwise, so positive and negative on the yaw sets a relative rotation of the spring arm. This is me left mouse button, so whenever I press that, it does a couple of checks. It does a line trace 1,000 units forward from where the camera's looking, whichever direction it is in the world. Deselects all the characters. If you hit a character, it selects it, and you lose all focus on other characters and enemies. If you select an enemy, it shows their cone, their like field of vision, like this. So select an enemy, it shows you where they're looking at. If you select a character, it shows you their abilities, so overnight, slash attack, spin attack, the archer, basic shot, grapple shot, same with the mage. Whenever I click right mouse button, it does another line trace, same way. And wherever it hits, it casts the character which you've got selected. So character selected, yes. And it gets a variable right mouse button location, and it uses that when it's calling an event called move to, calling a function called move to point, which is in the character base. So whichever character I've got selected, whenever this gets called, it does a couple of checks, see if it's got enough stamina, see if it's not dead, if it's my turn, and if it's not attacking. And it sets these values in the AI of a character. So if it can move, yes, and the move to location is wherever we've just right clicked in a world. Characters that are near wells destroys the columns, starts the player's turn, so it moves the player's view, this camera, back to wherever it was, because for a while he had the player's view following and being attached to the enemies, whichever enemy's turn it was. And that's pretty much it. So whenever I want the enemy to, whenever I want a character to use an ability, here's how it works. So I've got a couple of abilities that I've just made as an enum. In the character base, class defaults, it has different abilities, which is just slash attack by default. But say inside the knight, it's got slash attack, spin attack, and different ones which have changed. Same for the archer and the mage. This is the HUD that comes up when you click a character and you want to use an ability. So it's in different parts. This is the action button, and you can change whatever ability it is in this unit actions blueprint. So it gets the player reference, gets the selected character, which in this example will be the knight, gets ability 1, 2, 3 and 4, and updates the icon to whatever it is. So getting the ability, if it's a slash attack icon, it'll be this daft little image of Geralt of Rivia, who's special. Then whenever you click, so whenever you hover over an image, what it does is, on hovered, get lots of class, character base, couple of checks. So it saves that character reference is hovered, and when it's not hovered, it says it's hovered to false. Then event tick, if it is hovered, gets the ability, and depending on which one it is, so if it's slash attack, it'll set the range limit, and the range limit will be used to draw this circle, which is, it's like for the knight, I think all of them are pretty much 250. But say for the different abilities and the mage, heal is that far, share stamina, columns a little smaller, and shockwave's even closer. So depending on which ability being used, it changes the size of the circle and the range of them. It's just a little indicator. Then, whenever you press that button, a couple more checks if it's selected. It calls a function called setup ability, and that's the only important part here. So in the character base, setup ability, a couple more checks, it's not dead. Ability being set up, that's key. It clears all arrays of these lists of enemies that are in range, allies that are in range, actors that are in range. And then, so the ability that's being used, which is changed depending on which icon you've clicked on. It also switches based on which ability you're using. So if it's slash attack, the range limit is 250. If it's share stamina, it's 1500. and then depending on which type of ability being used, it changes which characters it looks for. So if it's just offensive against enemies, like slash attack, it'll just look for enemies. If it's heal, it'll look for allies. If it's grapple shot, which you can use on enemies and allies, it'll look for characters in range. Then they're all pretty similar, but they just cast into different things. So look for enemies in range. First of all, does for each loop to all of them. Draws a line between the character that's using this ability, that's going to use it, and the enemy. And if it's smaller than the range limit, which is changed here, so for a slash attack, it's got to be within 250. If it is, it adds it to an array. Then once it's finished, depending on which ability you're using again, so if it's just for enemies, if it's a slash attack, which you're using on an enemy, you can only use on one, it'll focus on the first enemy. If it's spin, which you can use to attack multiple enemies, it'll focus on multiple enemies. And you can change, here's how it does it, focus on enemies. Basically, gets which enemy it is from that list, and toggles a boolean focused if it is or not. So when you focus on the first one, it sets it to be focused, and then for each loop, get all of the enemies in that list apart from the one that's focused, and unfocus them. Whenever an enemy is focused, it just changes the material to black. So, let's do an example. Do that again. So a basic shot. There's a line trace between all the enemies in range, and I can tap between them. I can't hit that one because there's a wall blocking it, but if used spectral shot, I can shoot through walls and I can get the Azure. What's next? Okay, so once the setup ability has been used and an enemy is focused, or a target, or a character is focused even, next you click confirm. So whenever you click confirm, get a selected character, which ability slot you've just clicked. So out of 1, 2, 3, 4, it gets which one it is, and then changes which function to call based on your selection. So if it was slash attack, it'd call it in the selected character, and here's what it does. So all the abilities pretty much work the same. First of all, when you press confirm, it calls an event which does some checks, so you've got enough stamina, the target you're going to use the ability on is going to work, and then ability being used, that happens in all of them. It's just so the animation blueprint knows which ability is being used. For this slash attack, it gets the location of the enemy and rotates towards it with a final look at rotation, and then sets the ability being used to none, like pretty much straight away. So the animation only plays once. The night animation blueprint is what I need to go to. So, ability being used, it's always getting from the night. When that changes to like slash attack, after you click confirm, what it does is play a montage, night slash, and then finish it once it's ended. And then during the point in this montage, which I'll go to, if I can get this up, night slash attack. So if there's a notify at the end, when the sword would have been struck down and you would have done damage, that gets called. It calls an event back into the character blueprint, slash attack damage, and then it applies damage to the enemy in range that you've got focused, 250, and then takes away stamina, and then unfocuses all of the targets again. And that's pretty much how all the abilities are used. So first of all, when you click confirm, it does some checks, changes this variable to whatever ability is being used, and the animation blueprint picks up on that. Then when it gets to a certain point in the animation, it calls back to this blueprint, and then it'll do damage, take away stamina, do whatever. And that's the same way I've done all the abilities. It's pretty simple, it's just tedious doing it, but it's quite quick. Right, each of the characters and enemies in the game controlled partly by AI. So the character's behaviour tree, Battalion behaviour, what they do is basically check the stats straight away, so like health and stamina. If it's got no stamina, it'll finish wherever it's moving to, so it'll stop moving. If it has got stamina, and you've set the location it's going to move to by right clicking, and can move is set, which you also set to true by right clicking, it'll move to it and check the stats, and then once it's finished that, check the amount of stamina spent and finish the move to, so it'll stop moving. This was a bit experimental. Basically, whenever the speed is more than 0, so it's moving, what I'll do is get a path, so wherever you are is the start of it, and wherever you've right clicked and you're going to move to will be the end of it. As the path points to an array and flip flops between A and B. So first of all, it sets a value called previous location loop, and then when it's B, it draws a line from the previous location to where it currently is, and it keeps doing that. And it's a bit glitchy, but the screen's a lot bright, but you might be able to see how it works. So yeah, just draws a line to wherever you're going to go. Enemy controller AI. This was a bit of a mess as well, can't remember exactly how I did this. So whenever the enemy senses a character, cast up a character base, successfully sensed, yes. Check if the character's already in sight, which is this one. Character in sight. If it is already in sight, oh no, if it's not already in sight, it'll add the character to the list of characters in sight. If it's not already in sight, yeah, it'll add it. Can't mix up then. If it is already in sight, it'll check this array and update the character's distance. If the character wasn't successfully sensed, what it does is checks the array of characters in sight. If an array equals one of the characters, which was lost, so it's now lost, so any character base which is equal to a character in sight and it wasn't successfully sensed, it means it's lost. So what it does is adds its location to characters recently lost and removes it from character in sight and character's distance, and then put recently lost the character to true. Whenever it senses a character and it hears it, just says heard fighting. If it's not taking damage, so it's not hearing fighting of itself being attacked, it'll save its location of where the noise was coming from as a suspicious location, and check the boolean for heard fighting. So enemy melee behaviour tree. First it checks if it's turn, and if it is, it can move, it can do stuff. Check the characters in sight, stats like health and stamina, check it's not taking damage. So for heard fighting, it'll look at and rotate towards where damage is coming from. Reset heard fighting so it only does it once. It's my turn, yeah. If it's got enough stamina, no. It'll end turn. If it has enough stamina, it'll change what it's going to do depending on if it can see a character. So if it can see a character, yeah, it's going to update its state to be hostile. It's going to get the location of the closest character, make a noise so other enemies look at it, and check if it can reach the location. Then, if it's got enough stamina and it can reach the character, it'll move towards it, whilst checking other characters in sight and adding them to the arrays in its enemy controller blueprint. Then when it's finished moving to, it's in range, it'll finish move to, do this next bit, which is check if it's in range of a character and it's got enough stamina, and if it has. So the night one, it'll play an animation of a slash attack, do damage with a cooldown, and end its turn. And if it didn't have enough stamina and it couldn't meet those checks, it'd just end the turn and wait till it does next turn. If it can't see the character and it heard fighting, it'll go to alert, update its state to alert, move towards it, check the character's in sight, reset heard fighting, end turn. If it recently lost a character, yes, then it'll get a location of a lost character and move towards it. If it recently lost a character, no, it's just going to be passive, so it'll update its state to default, which is passive, which should be passive. Get random pointing radius and move towards it, so it'll just move around randomly if it can't see any character on patrol. If you notice when I change which ability I'm hovering over in a character, it brings up a tooltip saying stamina points needed and the damage that it does, and a little info about it. So headbutt, you need 100, it does 200 damage. Brace, you need 200, and it halves all damage that you take during that turn. And how I did that is, just made a couple of boards and text box and arranged them in this way, and bound the text content to a variable, or to a binding, and here's what it looks like. So depending on which ability this is, which is set from elsewhere, so if it's slash attack, if it's an attack, it'll say damage, and start again. So yeah, depending on which ability is being used, it'll give you a different description about it. So strike a single enemy, deal damage to all enemies in radius. Then if it's a damaging ability, it'll say damage. Get text next bit. This says how much damage you deal, stamina points cost, how much stamina you need to use this ability, and the ability name, ability at the top. This bit changes it to whatever the ability is called. It's a bit tedious typing all the values in. I probably could have done it a simple way, casting to a blueprint so that when I change it in one location, I change all of it. But it seemed like it was more work than it was worth at the time. But that's how I change the different abilities, different information that comes up on the tooltip for the abilities.